When money stress hits, it rarely stays in the bank account. It shows up in your sleep, your relationships, your sense of identity, and often in the stories you tell yourself. In this episode, we're going to explore how to shift those stories from avoidance to action, from self judgment to self trust, from fear based decisions to value based decisions. Through powerful reflections and small doable shifts, we'll show you how to face money stress without shame and start building a healthier, more confident relationship with your finances. Whether you're carrying guilt, worry, or just feeling stuck, this conversation is here to help you reconnect with what you can do. So, Dr. Teplow, how do we shift these stories that really drive this money stress?
I think one thing is to recognize we do tell our stories, and those drive a lot of how we feel, think, and behave. And we talked before, your mind just has a mind of its own, so to speak. And those stories that are bouncing around in our minds, they're they're just stories. And
Yeah.
so I think that first thing is to recognize that those are stories. It isn't capital T truth. And how do we get those stories to come from all over? And it doesn't really matter where it comes from or how it developed, whether it was your parents or your, you know, evil stepsister, whatever. It just doesn't matter. It's there. And so part of it is just accepting that that's part of being human.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and what is counterintuitive because normally you think I'm like, oh well, it came from my how my mother dealt with money or my father or our how we grew up in this community and how that money was talked or no one ever talked about it or did talk about it or those type of things and we analyzing why that is the case to understand better how to address it, but the, our solution focused approach, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because guess what? It happened in the past and you can't change the past. Of course, you can change how you understand it, but we know you can have as much understanding as you want. You still got to do something about it. And so the question is, what do you want to do and what difference will it make? And so instead of, if you want to entertain yourself and think about the past and how to arrive, that's fine. But that isn't going to promote change. So the first step is to know that destination. We've talked about, jumping into the taxi and the taxi driver says, "Where do you want to go?" And you say, "Well, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there." You got to know where you want to go. So what do you want to do with your money? What difference do you want that money to make in your life?
So when someone is facing down the barrel of either debt or struggling with meeting their needs, or you could have a lot of money and still have a lot of money stress. I mean, even maybe in just different kinds of stress. And then thinking about those stories, first you say we're going to say just notice that those are just stories as the first step. Then what do we do next?
And then ask yourself, and then decide, where do you want to be with money and what difference do you want it to make in your life? So, yeah, that's really important because people have this number in mind. Oh, I want to have, X number of dollars and then I'll feel secure. But, you may or may not get X number of dollars and yet you can still feel secure. There's this great story, and I'll probably botch it as I do many stories, but you'll still get it. So there's the farmer, right? He's working so hard. I don't know. He's in some other country, and he's working very hard. Um, and he enjoys his life. He has his family around him. He, has his villagers, and on their free time, they really enjoy each other. They smoke a cigarette or drink some beer or play some cards or whatever. And then I think it's a little bit about the Westerner comes to save the day and, says, "Hey, why are you, working so hard? If you, earned a little money and bought your neighbor's farm and that, and then you can have a really big farm and you'd have a lot of money." And the punchline, which I don't keep botching it, the punchline is the guy looks and says, "But, and in 20 years," oh, that great, great white savior says, "And, in 20 years, you could be living in a mansion." He said, "Well, why would I wait for 20 years when, as poor as I am, I still have enough money and time to do exactly what I want to do now?" So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that
So
changes the
that's
perspective.
really
It changes the perspective.
it does, yeah. So you have to think about what difference having the money will make and how much do you need to make a difference?
Yeah, and so many times I mean, there's studies where they look at how much money you have for happiness, and then anything above it doesn't equate to exponentially more happiness. So once you hit that number, I don't remember what the exact number, but it wasn't a significant amount of money to do so. And then after that, there was no additional happiness. So that's a pretty interesting stat.
Right. And I think when you look at Gallup polls, I mean, they do these huge, huge international studies. It's surprising who comes out as happiest and what they're doing and what professions. I think farmers, not agribusiness farmers, but farmers, I think they came out pretty close to top in terms of satisfaction and happiness. And I forgot what countries are happiest, but it's not necessarily those countries that have, quote, everything. Yeah. So that's the first thing, is know what you want, the kind of life you want to be living, who you want to be. Again, we say it's what your values are. If it's being with your family and spending meaningful time with your kids, then maybe it isn't having such a high powered job that you have to work 80 hours a week with and give your kids over to a nanny and, special programs on the weekends because you're working too hard.
Yeah.
And then I think one thing that a lot of people have trouble with is just avoidance. Like, I can't deal with it. I'm going to, college students, this is where we give a lot of data about college students that just pile their bills up. They don't want to look at them. They've never dealt with them. They don't know what to do, and they're not certain they can do with it. So if you feel overwhelmed, it's really easy to engage in avoidance behaviors. And so one thing you can do just is to ask yourself, when you have finally addressed it, because obviously if you keep ignoring the bills long enough, it will have results and you will notice it. But when you have taken time to do something, what's been the result and what's been the benefit of it? And that's one thing, to kind of do a little mental calculation.
Yeah, that avoidance is something I've seen people do, where they do avoid that and avoid even looking into it, looking at their bank account or anything, pile on debt on the credit card. And so what you're asking is, when they did do it, when they did look into it, how would you address it? I
Yeah,
didn't
so
quite get the
I guess
question.
the question is, yeah, so once you finally did it and took care of it, um, what did what was the result?
Hmm.
Was that better for you? And
Or
mhm.
or what if they don't even what questions do they ask even to get themselves to look at it?
uh, that's a really great question. How do you even get yourself to look at it?
What difference would it
Maybe,
make if you did do it? If you did look
yeah,
at
or
it?
maybe just to, some of our students use this term. Actually, a lot of our students use this term. Give themselves some grace. Just look at it. Simply know what they have to do and tell themselves, yeah, obviously they're still here today, no matter what's happened. So they'll still be here tomorrow. Somehow they'll manage because they've managed to now. And also ask, when there have been things that have been really hard, what have they done in the past? Some people do multiple bankruptcies. I knew somebody who just said, well, I'll just do bankruptcy. She did. And years later, she recovered and she just did. It was just a routine. Sure, it wasn't freaky. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting you do that. But it's like,
Right. But
you know,
there's always a solution. There's always a solution. Yeah. That there is a way to to solve it. But, if there's debt, there's a way to restructure it. There's always a solution. As long as you're still here breathing, there is a way to solve it. And if when you get constricted over that stress around those stories, it limits the ability to think about possibilities, to solve the challenge. By relaxing in this way, it does open up more creative possibilities.
yeah, that I think you hit the nail on the head, is that when you're freaked out, you are constricted. There is no thought going on. Your brain is offline. So how do you bring your brain online? And some of it may be to think about the future. So suppose in some way you took care of business, did whatever I had to do, and you're in a better place financially. What's the very first thing you notice? And walk yourself through, because that can be very motivating.
Yeah. Um, so the other thing I want to ask about is the question where the story where you say, I'm just terrible with money. I just can't do this. I need someone else. I'm just horrible at that. It's not my thing. That kind of conversation that you have, that story. How do you deal
Oh
with
yeah,
that,
that
Chris?
story.
That's a
And
very common one. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. We've talked about that permanent, pervasive, and personal. I've never, it's permanent, or I'm always, that's permanent, been able to do anything ever with whatever cent I got. That's, pervasive, all kinds of money. And, it's just me. I'm just not the kind of person that's good at it. It's just personal. Yeah. One thing you can do is we've said, nobody's perfect. Nobody even does their problem perfectly. Yes, you very well may be terrible with money, but you're not. There's a continuum of terrible. So sometimes you haven't had money to pay your rent, but you managed to, buy groceries, go out to movies. What did you do to have enough money to do that? So look for those tiny cracks in the story.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I realize I am bad about doing this, but I'm really good about paying my bills here, or making sure I always have, I always might not have money for X, but my heart goes out to people who are, doing the, service people. I give tips. Look for times where you're managing money in a way that's meaningful for you, and ask what's making it possible. So you want to ask two things, two kinds of questions: the what question, what am I doing? And a process question, how am I doing it? What's enabling me to do it? What are all the factors that contribute to my being able to do it?
I really like that. I might be not great with money, but sometimes I'm maybe I do a little bit okay. When are those times? That crack in the story. That's a really interesting way to look at that crack in the story.
Yeah, right. And it doesn't mean that you're going to repeat that, well, I did it this way. You may that, that kind of exception to the problem. It may not be relevant today, but what does it tell you? It tells you what you're capable of doing. You
Mm.
have evidence of your capacity to act more in line with what you care about, your values.
The other thing you said before, when we were talking about avoidance, is looking for times where you were able to do something hard or challenging outside of money. And what does that tell you about yourself?
Oh yeah, that's really good. I hadn't thought about that when we were talking about this podcast today. Yeah, that's a great idea. If money is hard, yeah, right. If money is hard for you, don't give up. Look at your capacity to take action in meaningful ways in different areas of your life. And it may be very different area, but the qualities that you have to have, the personal internal qualities you have to have, persistence or determination, or, give yourself grace, that kind of thing, self-compassion, apply. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So ask yourself, so I was able to do it there. How does that translate? And instead of asking, what can I do? Or how do I apply that quality or trait? Say, think so, catapult yourself into maybe a day ahead. So let's say tomorrow I had that quality or trait, I was acting on that more. Let's say, I don't know, determination. I was really determined about running that marathon, but in finances, like, well, let's suppose tomorrow I did somehow demonstrate more determination. I noticed myself being more determined in terms of my finances. What would I be doing? What would someone else notice about me? If you live with people, you're sharing money, what's so and so with whom I share a bank account see me doing that's a little different, that shows, yeah, I am using some of that determination.
And these are the kind of questions that we are pose and ask in our upcoming smart money management quest that's coming up. And that's really what we're asking through that quest, is these questions, that journaling some of these questions that we have that we never thought about asking ourselves. That question that even you didn't think about was like, when in other areas of my life have I faced a challenge that I've been able to transfer? Those are the kinds of questions that we delve into, and even role play in our group coaching sessions, that I think are going to be so valuable for people who join us for that quest.
Yeah, and another thing about our quests and these kinds of questions is that you never know what the answer will be. And just as you said, when we are facing problems and we're trying to fix problems, our perspective gets really narrow, really constricted. And when we engage the imagination more and those creative juices flow, and the solutions can come up in ways that you would never anticipate, never expect, and only you can know about them because you're the only one living your life, knowing the context in which you live. So that's one reason that I think, it's always good to get tips and suggestions and strategies, but so often they just don't work because those tips and strategies are in the abstract. They're not in the context of you and your life. And that's why you're the only one who can ask the questions and answer them.
Yeah, that's what is so powerful for this approach. And what I love when people come to our quest or in our group coaching membership, when we ask a question and they say, well, you know what? I've never thought about that before. And they like, I don't have an answer for that. And that's actually, that's where you get to the growth. And that's where we are excited for when someone says that.
Right, exactly, because they know the answers to the question, to the things that haven't worked. I mean, how do you start running a marathon? Well, you got to get the shoes. Well, they know all of that, but it's the things that they haven't considered, and they're working hard to come up with ideas that opens the window of possibility farther for them. Because obviously, the window they're looking through is too cloudy or narrow or whatever.
Right, right. So, what final thoughts or questions that we want to leave people with as they go forward and try to make smart money management decisions and just to reduce that stress around money?
I think is to be really, really cognizant about what your values are, what's really important to you. And, as often said, separate the need from the want. Of course I want XYZ. Do I need it? And tap into the times that you've been, I want to say, I don't want to say happy. Happy's good, but, felt the most satisfaction. Like I'm doing what I'm put here on the earth to do. And my life counts. I count. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking. And how you use money feed that?
Yeah, and I would also add to, you said give yourself grace or forgive yourself for any past decisions that you made, because again, it's in the past. And even if you make a decision tomorrow that doesn't live up to it, forgiving yourself for that, because it's only what you can do moving forward. And because that was a lesson that says, oh no, that didn't align with my values. That felt off. That was a good indicator. You now know even better what is more aligned, where that cab driver, you want to take that cab driver to tell you to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, keep thinking forward. What would I be doing in that better future? And see yourself in that better future, managing money in the way that's right for you.
Yeah, what would you be doing more of?
Exactly. And what would be different? And then go with very, very tiny steps. So if tomorrow I woke up and it was the day I was managing money in just even a little tiny bit better, what's the very first thing I would notice? I might turn off the water and not let the water run the whole time I'm brushing my teeth because our water bills are so expensive. I'll save money. Even if it's a half cent, it's doing something that tells me I'm aware of what it costs and I'm doing something to save money. Even that, just that simple thing. What's the very first thing you do tomorrow? If, starting out, that tells you you are capable of doing something and you are doing something to save more money or use it right, whatever it is.
I like that, because even if it's not making a huge dent, it's reinforcing to yourself that you are doing something. You have some agency in this. You have some proof that you actually are moving in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point because it's about who you are and what you're capable of doing. So it's your identity and your agency. I'm a person who doesn't, I am a person who doesn't waste money. I'm not going to let the water run. And that carries through your day.
That sounds like a fantastic place for us to wrap up. If you found this helpful, hit like and subscribe. It helps with the algorithm, as we know. We talk about solution-focused strategies every week. And that smart money management quest that we talked about, we have the link in the description here for you to join that. That's coming up. And we also have a stress assessment that you can take too to see where you land on stress, even if it's money stress or any other kind of stress. Assessment that you can take and give you some ideas insights on how you can respond to that daily pressure. And if you want to learn more about our unique solution focused approach that we discuss every week and book a complimentary coaching session, visit staminalab.io. Leave questions and comments below. We love to answer those. Thank you, Dr. Teplow.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for listening. Until next time, remember, you are your own lab, you are your own experiment, and you are your own best coach. Be well.